Symposium of Plato, this fella, the Speech of Aristophanes. First, you must learn what human nature was in the beginning and what has happened to it since, because long ago our nature was not what it is now, but very different. There are three kinds of human beings. That's my first point, not two as there are now, male and female. In addition to these, there is a third, a combination of those two. Its name survives, though the kind itself has vanished. At that time, you see, the word androgynous really meant something. A form made up of male and female elements, though now there's nothing but the word, and that's used as an insult. My second point is that the shape of each human being was completely round, with back and sides in a circle. They had 4 hands each, as many legs as hands, and 2 faces exactly alike on a rounded neck. Between the 2 faces, which were on opposite sides, was 1 head with 4 ears. There were 2 sets of sexual organs, and everything else is the way you'd imagine it from what I've told you. They walked upright, as we do now, whatever direction they wanted. Whenever they set out to run fast, they thrusted all their 8 limbs, the ones they had then, and spun rapidly the way gymnasts do cartwheels, by bringing their legs around straight. Now here's why there are 3 kinds, and why they were as I described them. The male kind was originally an offspring of the sun, the female of the earth, and the one that combined both genders was an offspring of the moon, because the moon shares in both. They're spherical, and so is their motion, because they're like their parents in the sky. In strength and power, therefore, they were terrible, and they had great ambitions. They made an attempt on the gods, and Homer's story about Ephialtes and Otos was originally about them, how they tried to make an ascent to heaven so as to attack the gods. Then Zeus and the other gods met in council to discuss what to do, and they were sore perplexed. He couldn't wipe out the human race with thunderbolts and kill them all off, as they had the giants, because that would wipe out the worship they receive, along with the sacrifices we humans give them. On the other hand, they couldn't let them run riot. At last, after great effort, Zeus had a plan. "I think I have a plan," he said, "that would allow human beings to exist and stop their misbehaving. They will give up being wicked when they lose their strength, so I will now cut each of them in 2. At one stroke they will lose their strength and also become more profitable to us owing to the increase in their number. They shall walk upright on 2 legs, but if I find they still run riot and do not keep the peace, he said, I will cut them in 2 again, and they'll have to make their way on 1 leg, hopping." So saying, he cut those human beings in 2, the way people cut sorb apples after they dry them, or the way they cut eggs with hairs. As he cut each one, he commanded Apollo to turn his face and half his neck toward the wound, so that each person would see that he'd been cut and keep better order. Then Zeus commanded Apollo to heal the rest of the wound, and Apollo did turn the face around, and he drew skin from all sides over what is now called the stomach, and there he made 1 mouth, as in a pouch with a drawstring, and fastened at the center of the stomach. This is now called the navel. Then he smoothed out the other wrinkles, of which there were many, and he shaped the breasts using some such tool as shoemakers have for smoothing wrinkles out of leather on the form. But he left a few wrinkles around the stomach and the navel to be a reminder of what happened long ago. Now, since their natural form had been cut in 2, each one longed for its own other half, and so they would throw their arms about each other, weaving themselves together, wanting to grow together. In that condition, they would die from hunger and general idleness, because they would not do anything apart from each other. Whenever the halves died and one was left, the one that was left still sought another and wove itself together with that. Sometimes the half he met came from a woman, as we call her now, sometimes it came from a man. Either way, they kept on dying. Then, however, Zeus took pity on them and came up with another plan. He moved their genitals around to the front. But before then, you see, they used to have their genitals outside, like their faces, and they cast seed and made children, not in one another, but in the ground, like cicadas. So Zeus brought about this relocation of genitals, and in doing so, he invented interior reproduction, by the man, in the woman. The purpose of this was so that when a man embraced a woman, he would cast a seed and they would have children. But when male embraced male, they would at least have the satisfaction of intercourse, after which they could stop embracing, return to their jobs, and look after their other needs in life. This, then, is the source of our desire to love each other. Love is born into every human being, calls back the halves of our original nature together, and tries to make 1 out of 2 and heal the wound of human nature. Each of us, then, is a matching half of a human whole, because each was sliced like a flat fish, 2 out of 1, and each of us is always seeking the half that matches him. That's why a man who is split from the double sort, which used to be called androgynous, runs after women. Many lecherous men have come from this class, and so do the lecherous women who run after men. Women who are split from a woman, however, pay no attention at all to men. They are oriented more towards women, and lesbians come from this class. People who are split from a male are male-oriented. While they are boys, because they are chips off the male block, they love men and enjoy lying with men and being embraced by men. Those are the best of boys and lads, because they are the most manly in their nature. Of course, some say such boys are shameless, but they're lying. It's not because they have no shame that such boys do this, you see. but because they are bold and brave and masculine, and they tend to cherish what is like themselves. Do you want me to prove it? Look, these are the only kind of boys who grow up to be politicians. When they're grown men, they are lovers of young men, and they naturally pay no attention to marriage or to making babies, except insofar as they are required by local custom. They, however, are quite satisfied to live their lives with one another, unmarried. In every way, then, this sort of man grows up as a lover of young men and a lover of love, always rejoicing in his own kind. And so, when a person meets the half that is his very own, whatever his orientation, whatever it is to young men or not, then something wonderful happens. The two are struck from their senses by love, by a sense of belonging to one another, and by desire, and they don't want to be separated from one another, not even for a moment. These are the people who finish out their lives together and still cannot say what it is they want from one another. No one thinks of the intimacy of sex, that mere sex is the reason each lover takes so great and deep a joy in being with the other. It is obvious that the soul of every lover longs for something else. His soul cannot say what it is, but like an oracle it has a sense of what it wants, and like an oracle it hides behind a riddle. Suppose two lovers are lying together, and Hephaestus stands over them with his mending tools, asking, "What is it you human beings really want from each other?" And suppose they are perplexed, and he asks them again, "Is your heart's desire, then, for the two of you to become parts of the same whole, as near as you can be, and never to separate day or night? Because if that's your desire, I'd like to weld you together and join you into something that is naturally whole, so that the two of you are made into one. Then the two of you would share one life as long as you live, because you would be one being, and by the same token, when you died, you would be one and not two in Hades, having died a single death. Look at your love and see if this is what you desire. Wouldn't this be all the good fortune you could want?" Surely you can see that no one who received such an offer would turn it down. No one would find anything else that he wanted. Instead, everyone would think he'd found out at last what he'd always wanted, to come together and melt together with the one he loves, so that one person emerged from two. Why should this be so? It's because, as I said, we used to be complete wholes in our original nature, and now love is the name for our pursuit of wholeness, for our desire to be complete. Long ago we were united, as I said, but now the god has divided us as punishment for the wrong we did him, just as the Spartans divided the Arcadians. So there's a danger that if we don't keep order before the gods, we'll be split in two again, and then we walk around in the condition of people carved on gravestones in bas relief, sawn apart between the nostrils like half dice. We should encourage all men, therefore, to treat the gods with all due reverence, so that we may escape this fate and find wholeness instead. And we will, if love is our guide and our commander. Let no one work against him. Whoever opposes love is hateful to the gods, but if we become friends of the god and cease to quarrel with them, then we shall find the young men that are meant for us and win their love, as very few men do nowadays. Now don't get ideas, Eryximachus, and turn this speech into a comedy. Don't think I'm pointing this at Pausanias and Agathon. Probably they both do belong to the group that are entirely masculine in nature. But I'm speaking about everyone, men and women alike, and I must say there's just one way for the human race to flourish. We must bring love to its perfect conclusion, and each of us must win the favors of his very own young man, so he can recover his original nature. If that is the ideal, then, of course, the nearest approach to it is best in present circumstances, and that is to win the favor of young men who are naturally sympathetic to us. If we are to give due praise to the god who can give us this blessing, then we must praise love. Love does the best that can be done for the time being. He draws us toward what belongs to us. But for the future, love promises the greatest hope of all. If we treat the gods with due reverence, we will restore us to our original nature, and by healing us, he will make us blessed and happy. That, he said, is my speech about love, Eryximachus. It is rather different from yours, as I begged you earlier, don't make a comedy of it. I prefer to hear what all the others will say, or rather what each of them will say, since Agathon and Socrates are the only ones left. I found your speech delightful, said Eryximachus, so I'll do as you say. Really, we've had such a rich feast of speeches on love, that if I couldn't vouch for the fact that Socrates and Agathon are masters of the art of love, I'd be afraid that they'd have nothing left to say. But as it is, I have no fears on this score. Then Socrates said, "That's because you did beautifully in the contest, Eryximachus. If you ever get in my position, or rather position I'll be in after Agathon's spoken so well, then you'll really be afraid. You'll be at your wit's end, as I am now." "You're trying to bewitch me, Socrates," said Agathon, "by making me think the audience expects great things of my speech, so I'll get flustered." "Agathon," said Socrates, "how forgetful do you think I am? I saw how brave and dignified you were when you walked right up to the theater platform along with the actors and looked straight out at that enormous audience. You were about to put your own writing on display, and you weren't the least bit panicked. After seeing that, how could I expect you to be flushed by us, when we are so few?" "Why, Socrates," said Agathon, "you must think I have nothing but theater audiences on my mind. So you suppose I don't realize that if you're intelligent, you find a few sensible men much more frightening than a senseless crowd?" "No," he said, "it wouldn't be very handsome of me to think you crude in any way, Agathon. I'm sure that if you ever run into people you consider wise, you'll pay more attention to them than to ordinary people. But you can't suppose that we're in that class. We were at the theater too, part of the ordinary crowd. Still, if you did run into any wise men, other than yourself, you'd certainly be ashamed at the thought of doing anything ugly in front of them. Is that what you mean? That's true, he said. On the other hand, you wouldn't be ashamed to do something ugly in front of ordinary people. Is that it? At that point, Phaedrus interrupted. Agathon, my friend, if you answer Socrates, he'll no longer care whether we get anywhere with what we're doing here, as long as he has a partner for discussion, especially if he's handsome. Now, like you, I enjoy listening to Socrates in discussion, but it's my duty to see to the praising of love and to exact a speech from every one of this group. When each of you two has made his offering to the god, then you can have your discussion. You're doing a beautiful job, Phaedrus, said Agathon. There's nothing to keep me from giving my speech. Socrates will have many opportunities for discussion later.